Greetings everyone, my name is Greg. In this video I am going to talk about atheism and agnosticism. And I'm going to explain both of them because I am an agnostic and an atheist, as well as an anti-theist and a pessimist. So it's one, I understand what both of them are. And where this came from was I had noticed this one comment that I didn't expect it would be the back and forth that it had been. However, I also wasn't expecting to encounter the boneheaded type of almost religious mentality from them. Because as you can see, they say as an atheist. And then they make a claim of the notable mistake you make is that indeed knowledge is a subset of belief. This idea that knowledge is a subset of belief is something to which they need to prove. Because it is something that, frankly, I don't buy it. Not for a second. And they tried quoting this website, and I want you to be able to see what they are claiming. And what I had pointed out was this is talking about, defined narrowly, epistemology is the study of knowledge and justified belief. But it goes on to say, and I will show where they get this knowledge is a subset of belief. And basically I'll debunk that claim real quick. Where it comes from is in here, and let me try to, so it's easier for you guys to see it. I'll do that just to make it easier to read, because I know it can be somewhat of a pain in the butt to try to read in the video. But what really the aspect with where it is giving the S and P's is, let me just I'll start at the top. There are various kinds of knowledge, knowing how to do something, for example, how to ride a bike, knowing someone in person, and knowing a place or city. Although such knowledge is of epistemological interest as well, we shall focus on the knowledge of propositions and refer to such knowledge using the scheme S. S knows that P, where S stands here, where S stands for the subject who has knowledge, and P for the proposition that is known. Our question will be, what are the necessary and significant conditions for S to know that P? We may distinguish broadly between a traditional and non-traditional approach. Answering this question, we refer to them as TK and NTK. According to TK, knowledge that P is at least approximately justified true belief, false propositions cannot be known. Therefore, knowledge requires truth. A proposition S doesn't even believe can't be a proposition that S knows. Therefore, knowledge requires belief. That is where they get it. That is the basis of where they get it. However, what they're ignoring is the fact that this is a very specific scenario. It does not necessarily denote all situations. And it surely cannot be put in as broad a term as they try to with this. That knowledge, that it is a base, because one of the things, let me scroll down quick so you can see it, is where they had said about knowledge being, here it is, knowledge is a subset of belief. This is an elementary concept. I cannot for the life of me see why you struggle with this, because it's bullshit. Because it's not true. There are lots of things that a person can believe that they don't necessarily have to know all there is about. Or they do have to know the concept. Like the aspect of, and let me just for the sake of a person, in order for a person to say they believe in a God, they have to know about the God in whatever religious sense or in any general sense. They have to have some knowledge of the subject, of the claims that are made. They have to have that knowledge. Otherwise, they would say, no, I don't believe because never heard of it type of thing. That if a child could talk when it's first born, if you would ask them, do you believe in a God? They would probably be, what's a God? They would need, and with anybody, they would need to have the term defined in order to know what the fuck you're talking about. In that regard, knowledge is a subset of belief. The thing is, or belief is a subset of knowledge. The thing is, there are things, and I'll pull it up quick because it's one that one of my subscribers had mentioned at the bottom of this, and it was something that they're exactly right in the way they put it. Knowing is not the same thing as believing. I believe aliens exist. I don't know they exist. That is a perfect example, because it's one, you can believe a God exists, but in the aspect of do you know, if you're going to be honest, you would have to say, no, I don't know, but I believe. Or in my case, I don't know, but I don't believe. The thing is, I first gave them a definition of belief and knowledge to try and explain that. And when I saw that website, I pointed out justified belief is different from belief. And that is where one thing that they had tried, because the justified belief came from this website, which was what they had quoted for their source as to where they're getting this idea. The thing is, I went off on the aspect of justified belief and how belief versus justified belief is not the same thing. Let me explain this quick. You can have a belief, like a person saying they believe in a God, and that belief is not justified because they have no proof. It's just a belief that they hold. Or the belief that aliens exist. And do you have any proof? No, I don't have any proof. Okay, it is a belief. Now, a justified belief would be a belief that you have justification for or evidence to support that belief. Now, you have two different types of beliefs: a justified belief and a regular belief. Both are beliefs. The thing is, there is a clear difference between the two. And the difference is evidence. Now, that being said, they had tried saying about atheism is the lack of belief in a God, or God is, that's all. And I was like, that is true. The justification is another topic. Try not to conflate the two. As if I'm the one that brought it up. It is something that was to justify their base claim of this stupid shit, because they got that from right there, but they didn't understand what they were reading, or that it's not a blanket, this covers everything. But they then try to act like that I'm the one that is trying to conflate the two. No, I'm the one tearing apart your base claim and pointing out this justification aspect is what you're trying to ignore. Because they had said above, a person like myself can take a neutral position, a position of neutrality, being it is impossible for me to know and also to not know if a God exists, based on the framework in which we try to disprove the notion of God. And this is where I was first doing, because this is misrepresenting atheism. And it is a big pet peeve of mine, and it's something that I nailed them on. I didn't hold back. I quoted that, and I had said, how can you be an atheist and so blatantly misrepresent what atheism is? And I had asked them, do you also seek to disprove Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, fairies, pixies, dwarves, invisible magical flying pink monkeys coming out of your ass? You can't know or prove they don't exist. And then they had said, if somebody asks me if I believe in a God, I can say I'm agnostic because there's some I want you to really wrap your brain around this one. There are some versions of God that I can accept and some that I cannot. Really try to wrap your brain around that. And bear in mind, at the top of this, they had said, as an atheist. As an atheist, and then there are some versions of God that I can accept. What versions? And why? That is the first question I would have for this person. When I really step back and take a look at this, it's like, seriously. And this is for anyone, any atheist or any theist that wants to try and act like there are some versions of God that I should be able to accept. Name them. Especially from an atheist like this. If you want to say that there are some versions of God you can accept, explain to me what those versions are and why you can accept them. Because if they're not based on evidence, what the fuck are you accepting them for? What is it about a version of a God that is more acceptable than another? The aspect of a deistic God is just as much bullshit as a theistic one. The aspect of just because it's not necessarily personally threatening, so what? There are still tons of problems with the base claim. It's not something that I could just accept. Because that is something, especially dealing with the religious like I do, if you give them any room, they will try and use the slightest crack to weasel in their Jesus. And they will try and find any possible way to weasel their God in. And if you're going to be one that will say, and I just want you to see this, because I'm not making this shit up, that there are some versions of gods that I can accept. Please tell me what those versions are and why you can accept them. Because me, there are no versions of a God that I would accept. Because there are no versions of a God that include evidence, fact. The thing is, it would also point at or ask the question, what's the difference between the ones that you can accept and the ones you can't? What are you going by? What's your reason for why you accept the one and not the other? Is it all arbitrary, how the wind blows up your ass? Is that? The thing is, they had tried doing this, this shit, and I went off on the justified belief, but what really had gotten at me was they didn't understand why I said they were blatantly dishonest. Because one, and I will explain this real quick. If you're coming at me and saying that you're an atheist, and then you're blatantly misrepresenting what atheism is, and you're furthermore making a statement that there are some versions of God that you can accept and some you can't, I am going to call you dishonest. Because either you're not really an atheist, or you're trying to distort what atheism is, and in that case, if you're misrepresenting what atheism is, even if you are an atheist that is just not getting this right, if you're misrepresenting the position of something like atheism, then that is dishonest. You cannot say you're being honest while at the same time misrepresent something. That doesn't work. Because if you're misrepresenting something, you're not representing it correctly. You're giving a false representation of the thing that you are talking about, which means you're being dishonest. Thing is, and they had, so because you can't understand the relation between two things, you call me dishonest? No. Because you blatantly misrepresent what atheism is, that is what makes you dishonest. But the thing is, I point out that I am very big on evidence. And they keep going back to this, knowledge is a subset of belief, which it is. Prove it. It's the same thing I say when somebody says about a God exists. Prove it. And agnosticism is the idea that we do not know whether or not a God exists. Then agnosticism is an acceptable answer because the belief you have is based solely on justification. Knowledge is contingent with both. Absolutely not. And that is another area where they're misrepresenting. Because I don't need to justify my disbelief to say I don't believe you or I don't believe your claims. It doesn't need to be a justified disbelief to be, I just don't believe you. It's disbelief. There's no need to justify it. The lack of evidence, you could say, justifies my disbelief if you really are desperate to have justification. The lack of evidence supporting the claim is justification enough to say, I don't believe it. The thing is, they had mentioned about a hangout, and it was one I hadn't planned on putting my teeth in over this. And I had said, you have not proven your base claim. Without doing so, your entire premise falls apart. Plus, you clearly said that justification is conflating subjects, that is exactly what you're trying to do. Yet you want to pull it off as, you want to put it off on me, which is blatantly dishonest. This is why I called you dishonest. It is because you wish to project your actions on me, then criticize me for addressing what you brought up. So yes, this person is blatantly dishonest. And there's no need to be so militant. And how is not buying your bullshit claim being militant? Or, how is taking offense to you criticizing me for what you brought up being militant? When it is simply pointing out, you brought it up. I want to say right from the get-go with this, the person didn't piss me off per se, but they're misrepresenting. They're misrepresenting my position as an atheist, and then misrepresenting the aspect of how justified or justification came into the conversation. That it was their doing, their website, their bullshit that brought this term in to try and act like it's conflating subjects. I'm addressing what you brought into this. This is the type of thing I get a lot from Christians that end up doing the roundy round, and it irritates me. The thing is, if somebody is going to have a base idea, and where I had said to them, the big problem is your presumption or presupposition with knowledge being the subset of belief. And it was ironic that they had this presupposition with knowledge being the subset of belief because the video that they were responding to, the stupidity of presuppositionalism. If you're going to, and it brings in and it raises in my mind the quote from that person, that dipshit from yesterday's video that had said, and I'm going to not so much do it verbatim because I don't have it in front of me, but in a nutshell, somebody that presupposes something or prejudges something, it's impossible, no matter what evidence you show them, to convince them of anything other than what they have prejudged or presupposed. And that you see with this person, and their knowledge is a subset of belief. That is their presupposition. So that is something that they will cling to in spite of any evidence to the contrary. In any evidence that they're wrong. And I was using the term of circular reasoning because they keep going back to it. But I thought about it and I looked at it a little bit more closely, and that's when I realized, no, this is a non sequitur. Because their base premise was not even applying to me in the first place. It wasn't dealing with anything that I had actually said. So, and you appear unwilling to accept my definition as being a definition. It's not evidence. It doesn't prove your claim. Because that's like saying this brief bit in 1.1 of knowledge as justified true belief proves their claim. It doesn't. It doesn't even get close. It's addressing another philosophical idea. But it has nothing to do with a universal, this is the case all the time. The thing is, this is the type of stupid shit that irks me. Because, like I had said in that other video, atheism is simply the disbelief in the claims of a God or the disbelief in the person's claims. It has nothing to do with, do you know that there is no God? That is an attempt to try and weasel the God in. Because Christians love to do that. They especially love to try and weasel their Jesus in by a force behind the universe type of shit. They will try and take the arbitrary, the non-personal, the force type of thing in order to get somebody to be, okay, I could go along with that, and then they'll weasel in that, see, this means you need Jesus. Bullshit. The thing is, it's a scam. It is an attempt to try and weasel Jesus in where he doesn't fucking belong. Or weasel a God in where they don't fucking belong. Where there's no evidence to support that idea. Don't give them any room, because they will try and use that to weasel shit in. This is the problem. This is the reason these things are so fucking important. Because the Christians, Muslims, so forth, they're hell-bent on trying to persuade people to their bullshit. Because they're on a sinking ship. The thing is, my interest is to educate and empower people with, you don't need this bullshit. You don't need to buy into this bullshit of you have to prove the negative. No, absolutely not. And what's more, for someone to try to claim you need to do that is stupid. Because trying to prove a negative is, you could ask them, do you feel you need to disprove Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, pixies, dwarves, ghosts, whatever. Because if they say they don't believe in those things, why? Can you prove they don't exist? You can throw their own bullshit back at them. It's no more valid, but it can also be used to rub their nose in just how invalid their attempts are. The thing is, like I've said, I am an agnostic atheist. Agnosticism deals with, do you know? Atheism is, do you believe? If somebody asks you, what do you believe? They're not asking you what you fucking know. They're asking you what you fucking believe. If you don't believe in a God, why try and dodge the question? Why try and shift it to something else when it's really just a matter of you don't believe? Just be honest. That's the big thing. Be honest with yourself. Don't let these people try and bully you, because they will. But feel free to leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section. Later, people.